Hello everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of this show, Think and Grow Rich, the Legacy podcast. So this morning, we actually have a wonderful guy. We call him Chris V. I've known him for a while. What a tremendous guy he is. And we're going to pick his brain just a little bit and find out what he's doing with his life and his business to be where he's at today, because this guy is one of the hardest working guys, one of the most serial entrepreneurs that I've ever met. So without any further ado, let's talk. Chris, welcome to our podcast show this morning.
Thank you so much, John. I'm extremely excited to be here, and this is great.
Awesome.
Do it.
Well, so I wanted to, start off real quickly, and I don't even know what to start. I got so many questions to ask you. So the first one, I guess, is just a little bit about your background, because a lot of people don't know you, and they will after this show. They're going to find out, who is this Chris V guy? So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to become an entrepreneur.
Sure. So as many of you guys notice, I'm Asian, right?
Yeah.
So my parents are immigrants. They came from the Philippines.
Okay.
And I want to start from there because that's really where a lot of my story kind of starts out. Because my parents came to this country, kind of seeking, the American dream, the opportunity, to better herself. And so they came through here because of their parents that were in the military, and my father also was in the military. So because of that, I traveled the world. Every 2 years of my life, I traveled. And even I am the eldest of three siblings. I have 3 siblings. So out of 4 kids, we were born in every part of the world. I was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky. My sister was born in Frankfurt, Germany. And my brothers are actually born in Hawaii.
Wow.
So we were raised all over the world because my father was military. And that was good and bad. The good part was you got to see the world and you got to see so many different facets of life and lifestyles and different cultures. And that was amazing. But the tough part was that you don't have any lifelong friends that you can say, I had a childhood friend and I knew since I was a kid. I don't remember anyone except for maybe a few relatives here and there that we stopped in the Philippines or Guam.
Right.
And so because of that, I had this life that was ingrained of me of kind of seeing something and then moving on to something new. Yeah. Right. Instead of just fighting it and saying, I want to just stay here, I kind of turned it into like, what's the new exciting thing? Yeah. And so I think that was really what kind of ingrained in me when I started looking at my life as an entrepreneur, that I'm always kind of looking at what's the new opportunity, what's the new thing that's kind of going on. I'm kind of looking forward because I kind of wasn't given that opportunity to kind of look back and kind of just hold on to these kind of past things, or else I'd be frustrated every single time we moved. Right. But my father was military, and so we moved around a lot, and then eventually I joined the military. And so my father was Army, and I actually was Marine Corps. Okay. My dad wasn't too excited about that, but he was like, but at least I know that you're okay. Yeah. You're doing something with your life. Sure. Like many parents, they want you to be a doctor and a lawyer, and I did graduate fairly well in high school, but I always felt like I didn't want to live a life that was, I guess you can say, linear. It just felt like everything was kind of set for me. Yeah. You just kind of go to school, get the degree, have the job, make the money, get the house, and then retire and you're done. Right. It just felt, is that it? Yeah. So I chose this path when I graduated from high school. I graduated well, I graduated salutatorian. I remember graduating, my parents were just so excited. They're like, oh, good, salutatorian, you're not quite valedictorian, but it's, second best, but you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be a lawyer. And at that time, I graduated actually in 1999. I'm kind of marking my age here. But my parents were so excited, but I told them that I actually wanted to be an actor. And I actually went out into Hollywood and tried to do acting for about a year or two. And that already kind of set the tone, I guess you can say, after that, where I kind of was going against the grain. But that moment where I kind of left my parents' home and I decided that, I'm going to make choices for myself. Yeah. I now knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back into whatever life that kind of set for me. And so that kind of started that mentality of setting the tone for my own life, making decisions for myself, taking responsibility for whatever successes or failures that I may, have to hit, outside of my parents, because I chose to not go the path that they wanted for me.
Right.
And eventually that led me into, the military, led me into different entrepreneurial ventures. And now here I am with multiple businesses, doing well, taking care of my parents. So not doing too bad, but definitely a lot of successes and failures along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it just blows my mind because there's a lot of people that go into the military.
Yeah.
They do their time. They're not paid or compensated what they should deserve to be paid.
Sure.
They put their life on the line, and then after what, 4 years or 6 years or 10 years or 20 years, they come out. Yeah. Some of them will stick around long enough to get their military pension. And then they go back, they go into law enforcement or something, security or whatever, something that they knew, maybe what they learned in their, what they experienced in the military. So now you did some combat tours, or what did you do in the military?
Yeah, so my MOS was a 7234. All military have a certain number that gets associated with our job.
What does MOS mean?
So MOS is military occupation specialty.
Yeah.
And so my MOS was a tactical air traffic controller.
Okay.
And so my father actually was an air traffic controller in the Army. And the difference between, at first when I got that MOS and it's a tactical air traffic controller, I thought, oh great, I'm gonna be like my dad. But that one word, tactical, actually changes the whole concept of air traffic controlling. Because in air traffic controlling, for runway, the idea is, you get that airplane off the ground, and your goal is to get it to point A to point B without hitting on other aircrafts.
Exactly.
Right? But tactical air traffic controlling is actually about trying to get two airplanes to meet. So we're actually trying to get our guys, friendlies, to meet the bad guys, and we watch them on radar to dogfight or to fight. Of course, we don't really dogfight anymore. We have so much technology that they don't even see the airplane anymore, the enemy. But the idea is totally different.
Right.
So
so you're saying that we don't have dogfights anymore? Yeah. We really don't?
Not so much anymore.
No.
Not as much.
So it's not like Top Gun. Remember the old classic Top Gun scene, right?
Right.
We don't do that anymore.
Not so much. I mean, if you are doing that dogfight, I mean, it's pedal to the metal. This is hardcore combat.
Wow.
But those things do happen, of course, and they definitely have combat that happens, especially for helicopters. That's for sure.
Right.
But yeah, technology has been to a point where they're seeing seeing the enemy like miles on end.
Oh, no kidding.
And they're shooting it. But if you don't hit them, you're still heading towards them. So eventually, you got the guns.
Right,
so that's where the dog fights come in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now you're doing all this stuff in the military, and then you get out, and now you become an entrepreneur, right? Which is really great. This is a great. I'm really excited about having this discussion with you, because there's so many people who come out of the military, and then they wonder, what do I do next? What's next for me? And so, how did you transition that life? Like, how did you go from all that to business?
Right. So the military, of course, that everybody knows, is very structured, right? Everything's decided for you. There's no decisions for you to really make except for you to comply.
Right.
And so even before I left the military, I already knew that this probably wasn't where I wanted to be. But I played the game. This is the military. This is what you do. So I already knew probably a year, maybe even 2, going out of that, this wasn't the life I wanted to live. And so I knew I had to make the hard choices, which was eventually to lead the military. Because the military is very stable and safe in a sense of knowing where your direction is, because you just have to comply. You just have to do it. You don't have to really make specific decisions that are going to change your life entirely.
Right.
Because the military plans that out for you.
Right.
We have this saying that if the military wanted you to have a wife or a spouse, they would have assigned you one, right? That's why I give so much accolades to the spouses of military, because they really work with the military to have that relationship going on. So it's a big props up to the spouses out there.
Yeah.
They're making the sacrifices, because military personnel, they're really focused on getting the mission and accomplishing that.
Yeah.
But making that transition out from a very structured world to now a world where you are making your decisions and taking that responsibility takes a lot of bold move, and many times you don't experience that until you finally let go. So there is definitely that leap of faith that you have to take. And then when you take that leap of faith, you're now leaving this organization and these individuals that really know structure, to now you need to find people that are in this world of entrepreneurship. And that's basically what I did, was to start seeking out other entrepreneurs, other people that, the community that I want to live and thrive with. And that's how I helped to kind of, I guess you make that transition out.
Yeah.
Of course, I had to start, from square one with a job and understanding that, wow, my rent is not paid anymore, my healthcare is not taken care of anymore.
Right.
So dealing with that reality.
Yeah.
But making sure that I held very close to, and we talk about this in Holding Your Heels, Think and Grow Rich, this burning desire that I know I'm leaving this life of stability and what I already know to something that I really want to achieve for my life. And that's my dad did military for 22 years. And I already saw that life, and I knew that that's not really what I wanted. And so I already lived that 22 years, and I was like, no, I'm gonna live a different one. Because I not only want to achieve what I want to achieve for my own life, but I want to be able to take care of my family as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
So another principle out of the book, Think and Grow Rich, which is to make decisions.
Yes.
Quick, decisive ones,
Exactly.
So, there are so many military people who, as you just mentioned, they have a spouse, and the military person now gets deployed with a spouse that's at home without the other spouse now, because they've been deployed, whether you're on a ship or to some foreign country, and now that spouse who's sitting at home, it's hard for them to find a job because now they got children too, and who wants to hire that spouse knowing that in a couple of years they might have to be relocated somewhere else, so there's no stability, so nobody really wants to hire that person. So for a military spouse, for them to start understanding how to embrace a business, and starting a business of their own is so important, just like you did. I mean, you didn't start it in the military, but you came out and started one. So how did you know to go into the financial service industry? You just said, well, I think I'm going to go into the financial industry. Of all the businesses out there, how did you pick the financial industry?
Well, for me, when we talk about finances, no matter what, your life is interacting with finances, right? Whether you're purchasing a car, renting a house, leasing a vehicle, saving money in the bank, you're touching it, you're feeling it. It's in your entire world. And so for me, it started initially as an education thing for myself, right? I'm interacting with this world of financial services and financial industry, no matter if I like it or not. So I have two choices. Either I can learn it myself so that I'm not being taken advantage of, right? Of whatever the bank says or whatever the loan officer says or the insurance person tells me. I can learn it so I can, make my decisions, well informed. Or I can just go about it blindly and just say, sure, here's my money, and I guess it's going to grow, and I guess this is what's going to happen. So for me, it started out as education, that it's taking responsibility of my own life, taking responsibility of the path that I'm going to choose. And then the other thing is, since I know that this is a world that we're going to interact with and everybody interacts with, and it's so important for us for retirement and the direction that we want to go, this industry is there and it's massive. And I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to be investing my time and my energy, I want to be part of an industry that I can be well compensated for. Or if it's an industry that it's a language that we all kind of speak, and that I can educate other individuals. I have one of my other businesses is tax. And I've been doing that for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And the thing that I love about tax is because, we talk about two things certain in life is death and taxes, right? So I knew that industry isn't going away. But the thing I love about the tax industry, at least for me as a tax preparer, is that I'm able to simplify a very complicated issue that a lot of people have to interact with every single day, right? And so I get to inform them, I get to problem solve, and I get to, pat them on the back and say, it'll be okay, we can figure this out together. And I get to really serve them and really help them out. And so it's the same thing with the financial services industry. We talk about retirement, you talk about, how am I gonna save, or How am I going to pay for my kids, college, and everything like that? I get to be in that position where I get to serve people. I get to help them to kind of clear out this language, this jargon, these terminologies, and simplify it to say, don't worry, we got this. This is the plan. And so they feel more assured about the direction and the choices that they're making. Yeah.
What advice would you give to people in the military coming out that have no formal education in business? They know they got to do something, and I think it's the best thing is for all these spouses that are traveling and supporting their other spouse who are in the military to start a business. What advice? Give them like 3 or 5 tips, of what they should be focusing on starting a business.
The biggest thing is that to understand that when you're in the military, you're kind of just fed everything, what you should know and everything like that. And that's it. You're kind of autopilot in many senses. When you leave the military, that feeding is not going to happen, right, for you. And I remember when I was about to leave the military, one of my captains told me, it's like, hey, Chris, you're gonna get, well, not Chris, they don't say our first name, they say Sergeant Villanueva, Sergeant V, actually what they called me. He said, Sergeant V, when you go out there, you're gonna kill out there. And I was like, why is that, Captain? Why is that, sir? He said, because civilians are lazy. They're lazy. I was like, you're a hardworking guy. I was like, okay, awesome. So right off the bat, I knew I had to take responsibility, right? That I needed to know that I was not going to be fed this information or this path anymore. I knew I had to take responsibility. So right out the gate, I knew I had to own up for this path I was going to take myself on. And then the other thing is to don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to look for a mentor, to look for a coach, to understand you're not going to know everything right out the gate. There are so many resources out there, not just for the military, but if you wanted to start a business, if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, talk to people. Don't think that, oh, I'm a military guy and this is the only world that I'm going to know and I'm not going to be able to connect with all these other people. Understand, like, this is where you're at, but where is it that you want to go? And where are the people that are in that path so that you can kind of learn from and feed from? So 1, don't be afraid to take responsibility for the path you're going to choose. 2, don't be afraid to learn and to be mentored by people, humble yourself. And then the third thing is to understand to persevere, to stay consistent. With it. I know military, we're all about mission accomplishment, hitting those goals and everything like that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, failure many times in our case can lead to death, right? Well, in the civilian world, that's not always necessarily the result. You're not going to die if you fail.
Yeah.
So it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
It's okay to stumble a little bit and just brush yourself off and get back out there and do it again.
Sure.
Right? And then my fourth thing would be surround yourself by a community. Right? We talk about in the military brotherhood. Right? I can hit up my fellow Marine, my fellow military personnel, military friend or brother, sister, and there's a lot of stuff we can relate with, right? And it makes us feel very confident and feel, okay, this is what we're doing together.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you go into the civilian world, when you're going out there and going into entrepreneurial world, starting a business, be around like-minded people, be around people who started the business. Even military veterans, there are organizations out there that are specifically geared for entrepreneurs that are prior military. So connect yourself into there because it's going to be tough,
right? And
you need to surround yourself by the right type of people.
Sure.
And the last thing is, screw what anyone else thinks, right? There's going to be a lot of chatter that's going to go out and tell you this is what you should do and what you should not do, and they're going to use sometimes your military background against you, and your military buddy's going to say this and that. At the end of the day, you need to take a moment, step back from the rest of the crowd, have a moment with yourself, reflect and say, this is exactly what I want to do. This is the life that I want to live, and then shoot for that.
Right.
Everything else is, we talk about seek counsel and not opinions. Everything else is opinions, right? Seek counsel and just stay focused. Yeah.
You seem like you go to a lot of events. You go to a lot of events or social functions and mentoring programs and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Why do you go to all those things? Like, I mean, you spend a lot of money going to these events and stuff like that.
Right.
What's your outcome? What's your benefit? And do you think everybody should participate in those things?
Absolutely. I 100% agree that big events are just really important for your growth. And I'll take a little bit from Mr. Tony Robbins here. He talks about a lot that your psychology is affected by your physiology, right? So meaning that you need to bring yourself in certain environments in a certain state of mind in order for you to, to really catapult you towards the direction that you want to take. And so I really believe that these networking events, these events of personal development, not only keeps you aligned with the direction that you're trying to go, which is, try to be a better version of yourself, but you're also surrounding yourself in the environment, that vibe that, we talk about that law of attraction here in Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, that law of attraction not only just happens for yourself, but it's also for the people that you interact with. And so I believe these events, they promote that and it keeps you aligned. And so I highly suggest anybody, even if you're not sure if this is an event that's for you or whichever, but it's kind of general direction, you never know who you're going to interact with. I've met so many individuals that are now lifelong friends from an event that I didn't think was like the thing for me, right? But it was an event that I knew that it brought people who are hungry, people who wanted to learn. And that's the type of people that I want to be around, that has the same type of character.
Right. Well, thank you so much, man, for coming in today. We appreciate all your wisdom, and I hope for those of you that don't know Chris V, I highly recommend that you get to know him. You check the little link down below under this video. You'll have an opportunity to find Chris somewhere on Instagram and Facebook, or his direct email or contact information. And we just ask that you continue to learn, and seek wisdom from people, as Chris just said, to make sure you go find somebody who has experience in that field and go and get counsel. Don't get opinion, get counsel from people. So thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this wonderful episode here with the one and only Miss Chris V. We look forward to seeing you in our next episode of this awesome thing called Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy.